Hey YouTube, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how alcohol affects me as an autistic person. And of course, I can't speak for every autistic person because I know that some autistic people actually do enjoy having a few drinks from time to time and they don't seem to have any negative reactions from it. So I speak for myself here because, as you know, if you've met one autistic person, you have met one autistic person. So before we start going into how alcohol affects me as an autistic person and just kind of like a little bit about the mechanics, about how alcohol works in the brain systems and alcohol withdrawal and stuff like that. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to ask you to please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. You know, alcohol is one of those things. It is very socially accepted. It's a staple in our culture for socialization. And it's one of the worst drugs that's out there because it has very deadly consequences. And even though it makes people feel really good, I don't care who you are. It makes a person do something, say something that they wouldn't under normal circumstances do or say. In some cases, it's just, as harmless and a little bit embarrassing, but maybe you sent your ex a mushy text. You wake up the next morning and you're like, no! And all the way up to you made a bad decision and you decided to drive and now you're in jail because you've killed somebody. So consequences of alcohol have all kinds of different levels. Um, for me, when I was in my 20s, I partied pretty hard. And I know what alcohol withdrawal feels like. And I stopped. And because see, it felt like alcohol was just loosening me up. It helped me be more social because in social situations, I can be very, very quiet and just trying to survive it. Well, alcohol fixed that right up. But I started to do it every day. And so I was concerned that, maybe I was, developing an issue with alcohol and that I might be an alcoholic. Well, all these years later, I've come to the conclusion um, that I probably actually am not an alcoholic, but rather, because of my individual brand of autism, the way alcohol interacts with my very weak GABA system, it works great at the time being, but in the following days after having a drink, I get anxiety, panic, I get paranoid, like, who moved that rock? Because, I have OCD, our front yard, everything's right in its place. And if there's a rock moved, it's like, did you move that rock, Mom? She's like, yeah, I was out there watering the plant and I did. The hose moved the rock because it makes me feel like there's somebody out there that's like gaslighting me or something. So it's very, very mentally distressing. So I absolutely just don't drink alcohol because for the hour or two that it causes me relaxation, the recovery from it in the following week is the opposite of what alcohol did to me with the paranoia and the anxiety and sometimes downright panic attacks. So I've come to the conclusion that I probably have a very weak GABA system. And a GABA system in our brain, it's kind of like now this isn't going to be exactly medically perfect. I'm not a doctor. It's very layman's terms in the way that I would describe it, but it's pretty darn close to what happens. So the GABA system is one of the most tightly regulated systems in a human body, and I have a very weak GABA system. I got to let my brain do it on its own, and even then I have sensory loaded anxiety sometimes. I would describe the GABA system as the regulation center of the central nervous system, kind of like a tachometer on a car. It goes it kind of keeps everything balanced with your brain and everything, how it's revving. And anything that works on the GABA system, such as a benzodiazepine or alcohol. Um, a lot of people can do it and they go back to normal the next day. They get a little hangover or whatever. And, pretty much by the next afternoon, the next day, they go back to normal. Um, when a person continually drinks alcohol all the time, the brain starts to say, "Oh, well, okay, this is great. We'll stop producing as much of our own GABA because we're relying on the alcohol to do that." And when a person stops drinking alcohol or cuts down significantly after a period of time, doing it regularly, it takes a while for the message to get back to the brain that it starts needs to start producing its own GABA again. So the low GABA levels are causing the central nervous system to just go, and that's why people have seizures with alcohol withdrawal. That's why people can even go so far as to have DTs, delirium tremens, and shakes and stuff like that, because the brain has stopped producing as much of its own GABA and has relied on the outside source. Now, it used to bug me because when I would read, about alcohol withdrawal, it interested me, so I wanted to learn the mechanics about it and why it happens. It used to really irritate me that when you look up, like, from day 1 to 2, day 2 to 4, kind of like how alcohol progresses, it's really, really loose. And it's like, well, usually it does this, but sometimes it does this. And some people, the floor doesn't even fall out from them until day 10. And they think they're recovered, and then all of a sudden, delirium. It just does different things on different people. So there's no exact timeline for everybody on alcohol withdrawal. Um, Sorry, I don't have a script or anything today. I'm just trying to pull this out of my head. Um, so I've come to a lot of people, have said, well, you used to drink every day and, it's having a negative influence on your life. You need to admit that you're an alcoholic. Um, whether I'm an alcoholic or whether I just have a really weak GABA system, and after even one session of drinking, I go into what feels like alcohol withdrawal, to me, it doesn't really matter whether I'm an alcoholic or not because the solution is the same. I absolutely cannot drink alcohol. And so I don't. And there was one time, I think, gosh, it was 7 or 8 years ago, that I revisited alcohol. And I had a couple beers one night. And sure enough, it had been years since I had a drink. And sure enough, there comes the anxiety and everything like that. So I just knew that I'm deathly afraid of alcohol now. I won't even, and I know that it wouldn't hurt me if somebody like cooks with wine or if there's chocolate liquor or something and chocolate bar. I know that it wouldn't hurt me because it's so minimal. It's probably all been cooked out anyways. But just because of the psychological aspect and all of the ways that it has made me feel, it I won't touch it. I read ingredient labels and stuff like that to make sure that I am just not. I won't take like cough syrups with alcohol, anything like that, just because I've had such negative experiences with it. And to me, that's a good thing because back to when people do something or say something or behave in a way that they wouldn't normally act, the person thinks they're fine, and well, to other people looking on who aren't partying with them, they're really not. Let me give you an example from my own life. I remember one time in my 20s, I was with two friends, and we went to a bowling alley to go bowling, and there was a bar over there, and it just happened to be karaoke night. So, being that I was a little bit loose from the alcohol and not quite as shy and out of my shell, I performed Hotel California by the Eagles for a karaoke night, and I thought I did it went great, I thought. Well, when I went back to the table and went to go order another pitcher of beer, I was informed that I had had enough for the evening and that I wouldn't be served anymore. I thought I was fine. I wasn't. So, for some reason, on me, when it comes to even things, because I have felt the after effects of alcohol and because I know what alcohol withdrawal feels like, It kind of connects with my sensory overload when I have anxiety or panic attacks. That's the best way that I could describe when I have an anxiety attack or even a full blown panic attack. It feels very much like alcohol withdrawal, and that it's horrible. It's my body pushes out adrenaline, and that's another way that the GABA system starts to work. Have you ever noticed how when somebody drinks daily, that over a period of time, um, when they have, if they were to have 2 or 3 beers, they seem less intoxicated than a person who has 1 beer. I'm sorry, they seem more intoxicated than somebody who's not used to drinking. It's called tolerance. A person develops tolerance over time. Well, what tolerance is when your brain gets used to an outside source of either a benzodiazepine or an alcohol producing the GABA. It stops to produce its own, and it actually starts to make your central nervous system and in your body push out adrenaline in an attempt to kind of counterbalance the alcohol so that a person just doesn't, get tired and go to sleep. So a person that's used to drinking can have 5 beers and not be acting as drunk and be wide awake, functioning, cleaning the yard, or doing whatever they do, whereas somebody else who had had 5 drinks would be asleep on the couch because their body has started to actually push out adrenaline in an attempt to counteract the balance, the alcohol, so that they can be more functional. Well, again, when a person stops drinking abruptly or significantly cuts down quickly, the body still continues to push that adrenaline out, even though there's no alcohol to counterbalance, which is then what causes the seizures. Because the central nervous system is in overdrive and your body is still pushing out adrenaline. It's really awful. And because alcohol withdrawal can be so unpredictable, some people, wake up with a hangover, they're fine by the next evening, they go on with their life. Other people are, their hangover comes, their hangover goes, and over the period of the next few days, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10 days, all of a sudden the floor just falls out from them unexpectedly and they go delirious or have a seizure because it is so unpredictable. And alcohol withdrawal doesn't usually start right away, even though a hangover is a mild form of an alcohol withdrawal. It comes on slowly over a period of time. And because alcohol is so accepted in our culture, there are a lot of people out there to, oh, no, I don't have a problem. I go to happy hour every day. Well, yeah, because if you don't go to happy, they think they're fine and that they don't have a problem because they're, drinking and then going to work every day and then going to happy hour the next day. A lot of people actually don't realize how addicted to alcohol that they really are because they don't go long enough without it to actually let the full effects of the withdrawal kick in. So a lot of people get themselves in trouble, and alcohol is one of the, if not the, along with benzodiazepines, dangerous drugs to detox from because of the seizures. It can kill you. It can actually kill a person too. So some people like you'll see them on the side of the road and the alcohol they have a sign that says "Why lie? I need a beer." Well, a lot of people will be like, "Well, I'm not gonna give them money for beer. I'll give them money for food, but I'm not gonna give them no money for beer." Well, even though starting to drink alcohol is a decision in and of itself, there comes a point to where the person really does need a drink. It's a health issue, and it's actually inhumane to cause them to abruptly quit alcohol. And we can say, oh, it's their own fault. I'm not a big fan of saying it's anybody's own fault. You know what? Life happens. And we still need to be compassionate against them. So at a certain point, alcohol withdrawal does become a health issue, and the person actually needs a drink and or treatment to be able to safely taper off so that they don't go delirious and even die. Alcohol is so socially accepted and it kills so many people in many different ways, even innocent victims who are just trying to go home because It because somebody else made a bad decision and got in their car and drove, and now, you know, people are dead. Cases of domestic violence, murder, arguments, all that stuff is some of the more serious effects of alcohol. And now, so we have laws that, we're not supposed to drink and drive. And those laws are great. Absolutely nobody should drink and drive. See, I'm a big believer in freedom. I believe that people should be able to. So I'm not saying you should drink or you shouldn't drink. You need to make the right decision for you. I'm a big proponent of, I think people should be able to do whatever they want, with the one caveat is as long as it's not hurting somebody else. So I really, I'm not saying, oh, you should make alcohol, it's bad. But one thing about alcohol is that it impairs the part of the brain that makes decisions, which is why some people will send a mushy text message to their ex, or why somebody who knows better than to drink and drive would think they're fine and get into their car and drive. Some people have the discipline to do that, but even then, it shuts off. There's a bad decision every time somebody drinks alcohol, whether it's just a little embarrassment, like my Hotel California performance, all the way up to I have messed up somebody else's life and my life in the process. I am so sorry. Well, yeah, you are. But so we have, laws against drinking and driving. So on one hand, there's actually two taxes for alcohol. There's the tax that you pay when you go to the store and you buy alcohol. And there's also a bad decision tax. And a big part of why drinking and driving is illegal is because it is so dangerous and it takes so many people's lives. But it's also really, really expensive. And so it's kind of like a double purpose. It's because it's for safety, of course. I'm not saying it's not. But it's also very expensive. And state makes a lot of money off of people that get into their car and make that bad decision after they were allowed to buy something and pay a tax that shuts off or impairs a part of their brain that is making decisions. I personally have never seen anything good come out of alcohol, so I choose not to do it. And so whether I'm an alcoholic or I'm not an alcoholic, it just causes my autism to have sensory overload for days afterwards. To me, the answer's the same either way. I can't drink. I won't drink. And so that's just the decision that I have made. Yeah, it really, really throws my senses into overdrive. And as an autistic person, I do struggle with like stimulation and sensory overload at times. And when that sensory overload gets bad, and I have an anxiety or a panic attack, to me, it feels very similar to alcohol withdrawal, even though I haven't had alcohol in years. So that's just how I would describe it. And so, um, yeah, I think that's about all that. Sorry that I'm kind of stumbling around a lot and stuff and going this way and that way. And I, didn't actually have my script formally written out. I just kind of hit the play button on the record thing and just wanted to sit here and, talk about how alcohol affects me as an autistic person, and also some of the mechanics behind why a lot of people don't realize that they actually are addicted to alcohol, even though they don't realize it. They think they're just social drinkers at happy hour every day. Um, so I just want to, talk a little bit about that. And I did. So now I'm going to say thank you for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and I hope to see you in the next video. Don't drink and drive, ever.